Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill, is with me right now. I want to read this headline to you, Niall, from DC News Now. Evangelical leader hopes conference is testosterone booster shot for anti-abortion 2024 candidates. Talk about a kicker.
Well, that is quite a line, isn't it? I wonder what Nikki Haley thinks of that line, or how she feels about a boost of testosterone as the only female candidate in the race. But I guess the point he's making there, if I understand him correctly, is that he wants a more vigorous, assertive position outlined on abortion by the leading candidates. We see that from some leading candidates. I mean, certainly Governor DeSantis and former Vice President Pence are pretty involved in that issue. Others, like Haley herself, and indeed like former President Trump, have tried to stake out a bit of a more nuanced position in some ways.
But is that what voters who care about their faith are looking for? Are they looking for someone to just make it very plain? Or as long as that person is more on the pro-life side than the pro-choice side, is that enough?
Once again, I think it's a distinction between the general election electorate and a Republican primary. So, for example, when I saw Nikki Haley on the trail recently, she was obviously talking to Republican voters, and her more nuanced position, not, for example, thinking a national ban was viable, it didn't go down brilliantly with crowds. Among the Republican electorate, people who identify themselves as born again or evangelical can be 65–70% of the electorate in those early primary states. So those people broadly want the kind of clear-cut position on abortion that your question alluded to.
Okay, well, obviously, this is a big deal. It happens that this event falls on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. So let's actually listen to one of the candidates, Larry Elder. He joined me on Morning in America on Thursday.
The evangelical part of the Republican base has always been powerful, probably even more powerful now since Roe v. Wade has been overturned.
Okay, so clearly Christians and evangelicals, as they're called, are platform voters. They care what each candidate is about in terms of the agenda items more than their personality. Besides abortion, what other topics are really going to matter in 2024?
So there are several. Religious freedom is obviously a key issue for a lot of evangelical voters, but then they are also interested in issues that don't always get fully recognised by the mainstream media. The issue of human trafficking and how to combat it, for example, is a massive issue in the faith-based community. So I think that's really important. The other point that I think is really interesting in all of this, Adrienne, is yes, religious voters are important partly because of the victory they've won on abortion. They're also energized in many cases by their feeling that they're on the brink of defeat in some other ways, like a movement toward a more secular society or certain issues that they don't care for. So one of the reasons they're so vital is they know they're in a fight. They know they can win it sometimes, but they also feel the danger of defeat on other topics, and that makes for a very active political population.
Yes, and Christian Broadcasting Network founder and obviously on-camera broadcaster Pat Robertson was memorialized this week. He was famous, groundbreaking when it came to protecting the First Amendment rights of voters within the church. So is it important for these candidates to set that same kind of tone where they convey to the church, we are here to protect you, we are here to make sure that you are safe when it comes to religious liberties?
It is very much so, because this audience in particular feels that those liberties are endangered and feels, I think, that the room for free religious expression in American life is being constrained. Now, clearly, other people have very different views on this topic. But the point is, when it comes to the freedom to exercise one's religion, whatever that religion may be, that is a very important issue to millions and millions of Americans, not all of them Christians, worth pointing out. And that is something that candidates will be expected to speak to at this conference.
You know, I have to get this last question, because I've spoken to people across the country about their feelings about some of these candidates, including former VP Mike Pence. And some people believe that based on his responses after January 6th and then leading up to this time period following his time in the White House, that he's become disingenuous, or at least he's come off as a traitor. Do you think that he has more to prove than perhaps any of these other GOP candidates?
He has more to prove to the Republican base generally, because to exactly the point that you're making, if you look at opinion polls, unfavorable opinions of the former vice president among Republicans are much higher. His negatives are higher.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.